Hi, I'm Brooklyn Howell. This is my critical assignment, fitness education for Kinesiology 562. We will get started. That's where my link for this presentation will go. But now we have our health and movement assessment. We start with our functional movement screening tool that we used, which is an excellent tool. I believe the research backs it up, but it's also just a way to see mobility issues with the client or high injury risk areas that you may not pick up on otherwise, or they may take longer to figure out if you don't use the screening tool. And so here are the results for my client. And if we look, we did have some low scores. There was the deep squat area, the trunk stability push-up, and the rotary stability. All of those are the score of 1. The rest of the test she did pretty well on. She cleared all the clearing tests and scored 2s in the rest of the area. So she had a total score of 12, which is still relatively, which is kind of low, but for somebody in their 50s who's fairly sedentary, it's not a terrible score. So, but we will use that information in designing our exercise program. And so we have that deep squat issues, which tells me that there's a lumbar stability and thoracic mobility weaknesses there with the trunk and stability, rotary stability. That's telling me there's spinal stabilizers and core stability. Now, not necessarily that there's balance associated with that, but I wanted to address it briefly, that a lot of those do fall in the trunk region of the body. And so if your core and spinal and those things are not stable, then there's going to be weaknesses there which can affect balance. So watching some of the exercises as she performs them, making sure we're cautious and knowing that balance could be a problem. Just addressing those things before something happens, reducing injury, really, essentially. Now, periodization. Our program design that we went with, we decided for my client we would do a 4-day-a-week program. So 2 days for resistance training and 2 days for aerobic training. One of those aerobic days will contain lumbar strengthening and core strengthening exercises, specifically to address those weaknesses that were found during the FMS test, our tool. And now our client goal, we wanted to address body composition, specifically weight loss. We set the goal of losing 10 pounds in 8 weeks through minor dietary changes and major exercise changes. Not changing too much at once, but exercising is a good place to start. Periodization style will be defined as traditional by half and triplet. And so, if you look at my program, when you see it, it's pretty much the same sets and repetitions will be completed, but the training load is adjusted throughout the mesocycles. So we will get into, here's a screenshot of my program. We have the first week of both mesocycles. We have addressing the exercise selection. We're looking at major muscle groups here. There's several compound movements. We're trying to get the most out of our time here and strengthen those areas. So not spending too much time on smaller muscle groups, but there are some in there. And we're looking at some of our goals or everyday functions. We want the client wanted, and I also want everyday functions to be part of reasons why we're doing these exercises. She's not going out, she's not training for an athletic event, for anything like that, but she just wants to be able to have good mobility to do what she does to continue her job and just a happy life so she can move. Now, like I said, there's lumbar strengthening and core stability exercises built in here. So the last day in each week for this example there's her aerobic, and then there is her lumbar and core exercises that to help strengthen those areas, her weaknesses. Now, these exercises, our core exercises are first. So looking at these, we have like our back squat, our lunge, our bench press. Basically, those compound, those major muscle groups, those major movements are first. Then they're followed by the assistance exercise, like biceps, tricep push down, the abdominal crunch, those type of things. Because we want our compound, we want to be fresh, we want to have the most energy. We don't want to do those exercises while we are fatigued. That leads to a lack of power for one, you're fatigued, but also definitely increases your injury risk, and we don't want to put our client in a compromised position. Now I will address frequency, intensity, duration, and progression. We have frequency, like we said, is 2 resistance days and 2 aerobic days. Those resistance days were designed specifically, hopefully, to be like a Monday, Thursday, or a Tuesday, Friday. We don't want them back to back, and we also don't want 4 days between them. We don't want to lose the progressions that we're gaining in that resistance training by putting too much time between them. Our intensity, we start with a low intensity for the resistance training, but we end up doing high reps. So we're about 55 to 70% 1 rep max, especially mainly because she is a beginner and even beginner to the weight room. So that's intimidating to go in there, and she's getting comfortable with her body, and we don't want to push her too far to start with. And also working on form, teaching new exercises. Now the aerobic, we start at low, not going above 65% heart rate, so not too intense. But then we do get to we introduce a high intensity interval training style aerobic, which ranges between 45 to 75% heart rate max, to get heart rate up and down. Hopefully, with our goal of weight loss, it's better for that, and those other benefits that will come along with that as well. And then we do have our duration is 2 mesocycles. So for us, 8 weeks, 4 weeks for each mesocycle. Now, specifically the training sessions were designed to last 45 to 60 minutes per session. And we are progressing through the week so that we're weekly increases in volume load with an unload week in week 4 and week 8. So those first 3 weeks we're increasing, and then we take a decrease in the workload in week 4, and then we jump back up in week 5 to decrease again in week 8. Now here is my exercise technique video. We do a snatch grip, upright row, and a deadlift. Now with this video, I do apologize. There's music in the background, and it makes it difficult to hear what I'm saying. I could not get the gym people to turn the music off, but that's okay. And then I also added the YouTube URL here as well. I'm going to have to kind of skip parts of this video because I talk too much, and I want to make sure I have enough time for the rest of the presentation. But I'll play parts of it.
Yeah, we're going to try one more time to keep our shoulders down. We don't want to slow our shoulders up. Ready? Good. Now we're going to get the lateral view. All right, very slight. Try to keep that bar as close to your body. Alright, that's our upright lift. The client,
I'll talk for a little bit.
Keep it in contact with your legs all the way up. Lock it out. And you're going to bend back down. Alright, you're going to stand up. So that's our first deadlift. Now we'll turn and we'll go into our lateral view of the deadlift. Same thing. She wants sometimes so the bar head of her midfoot. And her knees to external straight. Watch her hips down to the bar. And she'll bring her shins to the bar, down to the bar, bring her shins to the bar. And you're going to make sure, with this one, I didn't say it last time, but we'll make sure our knees go out and don't cave in. Your knees, push your knees out just a little bit. And when you're ready,
Zoom ahead. Let her try again. That one, she took the bar away from her shins. Something we have been working on is keeping the bar in contact all the way up and all the way down with our legs.
Contact all the way down. That's much better. Taking that conscious effort and making sure we're in contact with our shin and our legs the whole way. And that was.
And so that was that movement video. And so if you do need to watch that, there's a URL. Sorry, I don't have time to watch the whole thing inside of this presentation. But we'll keep going. So our application and faith integration. For application, I'm answering that where I am right now. I am a PE teacher and a coach, and I really don't see myself transitioning out of that just yet. So it's hard for me to answer that as a future career. But as a PE teacher right now, there's so many things. It's elementary PE, so the oldest kids I see is 10 years old. So there's not a ton of things that I can take specifically and scientifically and address it with those kids. But there are things that I can take and go ahead and start building the foundation or laying the foundation with my students. These kids, they are smart. They understand things, especially if you can start now. And then I could work with the other teachers in my district and make sure that education progresses. So they go from elementary school to middle school to high school, and all those years getting basic training and form and knowing how to do those things. Specifically, I can start doing trunk stability. Like, this is what it should feel like. Do you feel this? Can you identify these weaknesses? And picking out those kind of things. Kids can do that. And then as a coach, there are things my players do that I can show them now, or I can assign to them that I am confident that will be good for them. Or when we're in the weight room and they're doing weight room exercises, there are things now I know that I can go and I can address things, and I know more what's going on now than I did before. And also just designing warm-ups, cool-downs, pre-game, exercise plans, what's going to be best for them and to best for their performance and best for their health. And so now the faith integration part, I took this as the first part, what it kind of means to be fitness and faith together. And so I took it as this first one I'm going to hit is dedication. And you have to be dedicated to both, essentially, or biblically it's saying in Luke 9:23, Jesus is telling the people, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. So it's not a 1 day a month, 1 day a week, 3 days a week type of thing. It is a daily thing, your faith. And fitness is very much like that as well. You can't give it all you got 2 days a week and then expect to be in the best shape. You've got to do it. It's a daily thing, a daily effort. And that's just something easily, depending on your relationship with the people where you are in your wellness center or just your life. I mean, how easily you can communicate that to them, that it does take dedication, and that's in anything that you do, really. And then you place some value on that. So that leads me to the next one, value, but which is 1 Timothy 4:8. For physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. To me, that's saying that it's saying there is training and physical training. So health right there, health and wellness is important, but at the end of the day, godliness takes place above all. That is promising, that holds value in life right now, but also in the life to come, which in this sense is speaking of eternity. So whatever your client or whatever the people in your environment are put their value in, just find ways to communicate that yes, it may be important to them, but at the end of the day, it's not the most important thing. So don't lose sight of what is the most important. And then the last faith component integration that I could see, well, kinesiology is a lot about the body, so I felt it was appropriate to talk about the body of Christ, specifically from 1 Corinthians 12 through 31, which I am going to paraphrase a little bit, is, again, like I said, the body of Christ, but it addresses specific roles of certain body parts or certain people in the body of Christ. Like the feet cannot do what the hands do, and the eyes cannot say that the hands are of no value. Just like people have certain roles that they serve in their jobs, in society, in their families that are of value and other people cannot do, or they do not do, or they were not called to do. You are designed to do exactly what you're meant to do. And so finding a way to integrate that with people and let them know that they are where they are for a reason. God has put them there, and just don't look at the feet. Don't look at somebody else and say that I want to do what the feet do. That's not your job. You are not called to be the feet. You're called to be wherever you are, to be used where you are. So just addressing that with people, and in a sense, I can see that in the gym being where maybe somebody's frustrated with where they are in their fitness journey, but that their journey's there and they can get somewhere, but they can't make themselves, if they are a foot, they cannot make themselves a hand. It just does not work that way in the Bible, and it doesn't work that way in real life. And so that's just another integration. And that is pretty much all I have. Here are my reference slides. I have one more. And like I said, that's all I got. Thank you. I can find the pause.